Now the next step is to, while we've got this back channel off, is to go ahead and set up the V-groove bearings on the gantry side plates. So I'm going to gather the gantry side plates and the V-groove bearings, and we'll show you how to install those. Okay, I've got these V-groove bearings installed just kind of finger tight on one of these gantry sides, and I wanted to since I want to try to pull this up close to the camera so you can see that the three top holes here where the bearings go through, those are just through holes. So you just put those through there, tighten them up, they don't move. And notice that the bottom holes are slotted slightly, and that is so when you put the V-groove bearings in, you want to put them all the way down to the bottom, and then once you slide this on or use the plate that I'm going to show you here in a minute how to get these set before you put it on there, you can push those up and then tighten them down so that they're snug against that rail. To show you another little close-up here how these things go on. Let's see if I can get the camera to focus here. Maybe it'll focus here in a minute. What you're putting in here, you've got on this side of the plate, you've got the nut, then you've got the plate, then you've got two of the small washers, then you have the V-groove bearing, and then you have the head of the machine screw. So that the two washers go on the side next to the bearing. They're actually to space the bearing out just a little bit. So there's two small 1024 washers, or number 10 washers, that space that out. And then of course your caps nut I don't know if that thing's going to ever focus or not. But anyway, that goes on the end. Okay, I've got this one pretty much adjusted. And I've got these on here on this other side, again finger tight. And I'm going to try to bring the camera in a little closer. This is kind of hard to get a camera at an angle where you can see what the heck I'm doing. But anyway, like I said, you put these V-groove bearings in the bottom and put them all the way to the bottom of that slot so that you're moving them up. So let me see if I can relocate the camera here and get this where I can show how I'm tensioning those up against this rail. Okay, I've got the camera moved. Hopefully you'll be able to see this. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take it again. I've already tightened these securely on the top, so they're not going to move. And then I'm going to guide this in, making sure that it's on the center of that V-groove bearing. And now I believe I've got this in the shot. You can see how I'm not connected in on the bottom there. So what I want to do is I want to take the screwdriver and I'll put this wrench on this hex nut here because I can use that to help pull up. But what I'm going to do is pull this up and hold it with my hand. I'm using the center one right now to get it tight against that rail, and then I can put once I start getting it snug, I can put that wrench on the nut and pull up, and then I'm also kind of pulling up with this Phillips head screwdriver as well. So there you can see I've got that one secure against the bottom part of the rail. And then it's basically just repeating the process on the other two. I always start in the middle because that seems to hold it the easiest. So I put the hex nut on there after I get it snug. And then as I'm pulling it up, tighten that down. And you get a nice tight up against that rail there. Another way you could do this, and I've done it this way before, but I'm showing it this way probably because most everybody will put the rails on and then think of it. But another way you can do it is to leave one of these side rails off. Just put one on and then take this, since both of these are the same, they're both 4 inches across, you could actually use this while it's loose to set in here on this plate and adjust your V-groove bearings, and then once you get it tight, slide them on, and then put this other rail on. You can do it that way. But I went ahead and showed it this way because I figure this is how most people will do it. They'll put these channels together, put both of these rails on, and then move on to this step. Okay, so you've got your V-groove bearings installed on your gantry side plates, and you've got them snugged up against the rail here, and you probably think, well, now's the time to put this rear channel on. Nope, don't put that on yet. What you'll want to do, and this is regardless of whether you buy the Acme nuts and the, you know, whether you buy those from me or get them yourself, either way, you'll want to install those before you put this on. And the reason for that is when you pull this off, I can just see, this will just come right off the back now. Once you get those set, you can pull this off. But you see these two holes here? This is what goes to mount the little bracket that where the Acme nut goes. And because those are through holes, once you put this on, you won't be able to get to the head of these screws, you know, before. You'll have to pull it off. So if you put the rear channel on, and you put this on, and you start assembling everything else, and you realize you haven't put these on, then you got to pull it back off to pull it out. So make sure you go in the right order, folks. Also, when I did this prototype for this machine, I had 3 of these brackets. And I basically put the same type of cutout in them, and then I realized that that probably wasn't a great idea. I mean, it's okay for me because I can look at them and tell 2 of them are exactly the same length here, and that's the 2 that go on the that drive the y-axis here, and then this third one is one that goes on the z-axis, and it is close enough that, you know, without looking at it closely, you might accidentally grab the wrong one. So I made a revision change so that in the parts that you get, there will be a different cutout. There will be 2 of these brackets that look exactly the same, and then the third one will look a little different, and the one that looks like the oddball, that's the one that goes with the z-axis. So just wanted to bring that up while I was thinking about it. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to attach, and it's really easier, folks, I found, to put the Acme nut onto the bracket before you put the bracket onto the gantry side plate. Let me see what I did with those screws here. Gantry side plate uses these little, I believe these are 632 screws, and then a little 632 nut. And I also, these 632 screws, I believe, are 3/4 long. And the way I run them in is I run the nut, run the screw, if I can get it, hold on to the darn thing here. I put the screw head on this side where the spring is. That way there's no screw sticking out or nut sticking out to interfere with that, that anti-backlash spring. So I put the screw head on that side, put the nut on this side, and it seems to work fine. And it really doesn't matter. Don't worry about which way do I turn this bracket. It really doesn't make any difference because, I mean, think about it. When you put the lead screw through there, it's going to run back and forth. So it doesn't really matter whether it's running through this way or running through this way. Same difference. It'll work either way. And the reason I said is, now you can see, because I'm trying to get this nut on here and it's a little tight in here. So it's easier to do that while you've got the bracket off. Or at least I think it is, because then you can hold a, well, I still did that one wrong. Look at there. Put one way and one another. Ah, there we go. Okay, now I'm cooking with gas. Okay, so you got both of your nuts out here on the side where the face of the Acme nut is. And again, these Acme nuts are made from Delrin, so you don't want to crank down super hard. Just crank down enough so that you know they will not work loose on you. That is something you can get to after it's all assembled, though, if it doesn't. So you want to put your Acme nut on that bracket, and then you want to take your gantry side plate and connect your bracket right here. And for that, I'm using 1024 by 3/4, I believe it is, because I've got to run through a piece of quarter plate. Actually, if you had a 1/2" screw there, that would work as well. Okay, and like I mentioned before, you won't be able to get to the head of those screws once you slide this on. So once you get all that secure, go ahead and get it tightened up so that you don't have to worry about coming back and tightening again, because if you do, you have to pull this rear channel back off again, and you don't want to have to do that. So once you've got your spacing, once you get your spacing set on these, it should go right on there. And there we have it. So now I'll add the bracket to the other side with the Acme nut, and then we'll go ahead with the next step.